Well, it was in my childhood days. Oh Lord, many long years ago. Now with the Spirit, now of my Savior, I was filled.
That's really my specialty, or old roads in this area. My family has been in business down here over 70 years. So I kind of grew up in this town and grew up with the history of it. But the town itself began about 1886, I believe. And the name of the town kind of gives us an idea of what the developers intended. They called it Park Resort. And if you look at the old plat map of the town, this focal point, the center of that map, is the old Mackenzie Park. And I think they envisioned residences around the park, and then Harrison Avenue being a commercial corridor, with commerce originally starting down on the docks and then going gradually north. They changed the name a couple of years later to Harrison. Hotels, there were many hotels down here. Like I say, they wanted this to become a resort, and you couldn't get out to the beach. There was a bay out there that blocked you, so there was no bridge. So people would come here, and they envisioned then people going out to Shell Island or just enjoying the beach along, say, Beach Drive here on one of the bays. The railroad came along in 1906, I believe, and that was the year, by the way, that the name changed to Panama City.
1906.
The story is that A.B. Steele, the president of the railroad, was asked what did he think that this community should be called. And the Panama Canal had just been opened, and of course he envisioned his railroad bringing cargo and things down to the coast, and then being transported by ship from there down through the Panama Canal. So he said Panama City, and that became the name.
Well, I understand your specialty is roads and trails, and
Right.
That's what you really focus on. Can you tell us about some of those famous trails that surrounded or you would go through Panama City?
I found this remarkable map, dated 1778, done by a British cartographer, and I discovered that there were Indian trails shown on this map, one of which went through this area, and I and another partner successfully mapped that thing. It was a 100-mile trail that went from the mouth of Choctawhatchee River up to a point on the Chattahoochee River. It's a 100-mile trail. They call it a trading path. And the British traded with the Indians. They traded beads and garments and other things like that to the Indians, and in turn, the main thing they got out of the Indians were deer skins. This was a trading path.
What tribes, Indian tribes, lived settled here?
During the trading path days, which would have been late 1700s, you had Seminoles that had come into this area. The old indigenous tribes in this area were the Chicatos Indians, and I suppose some of the Chiscas, and maybe a little bit of the Apalachicola, they call them. Those were the earlier tribes, but in the early 1700s, the British and their allies, the Creeks, began to invade this area, sweep down from the north, and they wiped out the Spanish missions that had been created in the area, and just about eradicated all the Indians, or ones that were left fled and left the area. So there was a vacuum here, and so these Indians from the north came down and settled in this area.
I'm working with the Glenwood Working Partnership, and we're interested in the Glenwood area. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you can tell us about?
East End was the original black community here in this area. East End was close to the junction of 6th Street and Harmon Avenue. That was there before Glenwood, Shinetown, all those areas were built. I have a 1917 map that shows that, and you've got many churches down there. There were a lot of juke joints and groceries and other things in that area. I do know that there was an old farmhouse at the corner of Cone and 10th Street. It was owned by the Siegler family. Now, you may not think that's very far out of town, but back in the early 1900s, that was out of town. That was woods out there.
Was this basically the area where African Americans settled, as far as the Panama City area, or was there other little spots where they may have settled?
I think the largest concentration was there, but now you had Hulk Massalina, who was a very famous historical person here in the Bay County area. His community was out on Redfish Point. Of course, when the U.S. government decided they needed that land for the Air Force Base, you know, they bought the land from all these people. Now, they're being big, they black or white. They were both there were a lot of different communities out there, and forced them to all abandon their land over there. But Hawk's mother and father are both buried over there on the golf course, the Tyndall Golf Course.
Oh, really?
And the old cemetery is there, and they are buried on a Indian settlement. I don't know the dates of that settlement, but it was quite old. I think it was pre-Seminole period. Those rolling mounds that you see over there on the golf course are really Indian mounds.
I've seen that. That's interesting.
I would like to mention a community that I want to do a program on one of these days for the Historical Society, and I've done some research on it. It's the community of Econfina. That was probably the first settlement in Bay County. The Gaynor family, both white and black families, settled up there in that area. There was both a black and a white Gaynor family, and their descendants are all over this county. That was where they settled. There is a cemetery. When old man Gaynor, William Gaynor, first came down here, and he saw the beauty of that place, all the springs and the wild game there, he wrote back to his family and told them to come on down here, but don't tell anybody else about this place.
I do want to thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Quite welcome.
I know that this will help people that are coming to Panama City, or maybe some that have already been here, understand the beauty of the city and what it has to offer.
I hope maybe it will get some people aware that we need to preserve our heritage, and will help me get out there and fight for it.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much.
All right,
really
thank
appreciate it.
Lord.
Well, people, they would be shouting, praise my God. I hear them still in that little that one church house out on a hill.